Let's look at our eye model. So I'm going to do this in a series of videos. First, we're going to look at some of the structures that you can see from the surface. First, we see up here this gray. This is actually referring to the palpebrae. Palpebrae, that would be your eyelid. So we have a superior and an inferior palpebrae. Then we have the lacrimal gland. Over here, you can see the lacrimal gland. This is the lacrimal gland with very small lacrimal gland ducts. Those are going to produce tears, the lacrima, that will spread across the surface of the eye. So it'll spread all the way across the surface of the eye and will be collected first by the lacrimal canals. So here we can see the lacrimal canals, and then those will be taken into the lacrimal sac. So here we see the lacrimal sac, and then that will extend down to a lacrimal canal, and eventually that's going to go into the nasal cavity. So that's why sometimes if you have excessive production of tears, you get a runny nose as a response. Okay. We can see the middle portion, we have the medial caruncle. Okay. And if we look at the front of the eye, we can see first the sclera, the white of the eye, one of the layers of the eyeball itself. This is a little clear structure here. That's the cornea. Half of it has been removed so that we can easily see the iris, right? The iris is the pigmented portion of the eye. It's mainly made out of smooth muscle that will adjust the diameter of the pupil. The pupil is this hole that we see here. So the pupil is a space and not a structure. Up at the top, we can see one of the muscles that helps operate the eyelids. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take off the front of this eye, and the next structures we're going to look at will be some of the extrinsic eye muscles. These are the muscles that are going to move the eyeball around itself. All right, so when we look at the extrinsic eye muscles, we can see there is a superior rectus, right? The rectus is going to have fibers that all run in the same plane. There is a medial rectus over here. There is a lateral rectus, and there is an inferior rectus. So the rectus muscles are going to be ones that will move on a 90-degree plane. But then we also have a couple of muscles that will be responsible for rotating the eye and helping look up and down. So up at the top, we can see the insertion point for the superior oblique muscle. Right. And then down at the bottom, down in here, we can see the inferior oblique muscle. Okay. All right, so now while we have the eye off, we can look at some structures of the eyeball itself. All right, so we saw already the cornea, which should be transparent. There shouldn't be any blood vessels in the cornea. Then beyond that, we see the sclera. The cornea and the sclera are both parts of the outer layer of the eyeball called the fibrous tunic. And if we look in the very back of the eyeball, so we're going to have a posterior view of the eyeball. Up here we can see in this posterior view, here's the superior, the tendon for the superior rectus. Down here we can see the inferior rectus. I'm sorry, for the superior oblique, superior rectus, superior oblique. Down here we see the inferior rectus and the inferior oblique, right? Here's the inferior oblique. It's going to be running down, and we can see it coming around here. The eyeball is going to be supported by a lot of fat that's going to help cushion the eyeball in place. But I want to show you this very important structure here. It's surrounded by the cornea, which is continuous eventually with the dura mater of the brain. But here we have the optic nerve that's going to contain neurons coming out of the eye, out of the retina, and then the central artery and vein of the optic nerve. All right. And so next we'll go to some of the interior structures of the eyeball.